All right, 49ers faithful. It's time to talk about what's really going on in San Francisco because this team just can't seem to catch a break. Every time it feels like the pieces are falling into place, something happens that completely shakes things up. And this time, it's another gut punch for the defense. Bryce Huff is going to be sidelined for a while after pulling his hamstring against the Atlanta Falcons. That's tough news for a player who's been nothing short of electric this season. Huff was a monster in that game, constantly getting into the backfield, helping the Niners defense rack up 22 pressures, and basically setting the tone for how dominant this group could be when everything's clicking. It's wild how often this same storyline keeps playing out. A guy dominates on Sunday, finishes the game looking perfectly healthy. Then by Monday, Kyle Shanahan steps to the podium and drops another injury bombshell. It's like the Niners are cursed when it comes to staying healthy. Bryce Huff, who's been one of the biggest impact additions to this defense all season, suddenly joins a growing list of stars stuck on the sideline. We're already without Nick Bosa. We're already without Fred Warner. And now Huff, who's been a game wrecker from start to finish this year, is out too. At what point does this start to become too much for this team to handle? You can feel the frustration, not just from the fans, but from the locker room too. This defense has been built on depth and versatility, but even the deepest teams eventually hit a wall when injuries stack up like this. Huff isn't just another rotational piece. He's been a key difference maker. His explosiveness off the edge, his ability to win quickly, to force quarterbacks off their spot, that's not something you can easily replace. And now, with him out for a few weeks, San Francisco's defensive end group is suddenly paper thin. Right now, the healthy options are Mike Williams, Sam Okwonu, Travis Gibson, Robert Beal, and William Bradley King. That's the list, folks. No Bosa, no Huff, no Warner leading the charge. It's a tough spot to be in. And honestly, it raises a serious question. How long can this team keep weathering storms like this before the cracks start to show? Robert Saleh's done an incredible job keeping the defense competitive and scheming ways to generate pressure. But there's only so much creativity can do when you're missing this many stars. The 49ers front office might not have a choice anymore. They may need to make a move, and they may need to make it fast. If that means overpaying a little to bring in a proven pass rusher before Sunday, so be it. Because surviving without Bosa and Warner is already hard enough. But now losing Huff, a player who's arguably been one of the most productive defenders this year, that's flirting with disaster. And make no mistake, Huff has been phenomenal this season. He's not just been good, he's been elite. His overall PFF grade sits above 82. His pass rush grade is over 81. And he's already stacked up 19 pressures, 15 hurries, and 4 sacks on just 135 pass rush snaps. Those are serious numbers. He's been exactly the kind of player that takes this defense from good to dominant. And what's crazy is that he was doing all of this while still getting comfortable in this system. Huff reuniting with Robert Saleh was a dream scenario, and man, it was working beautifully. But hamstring injuries, especially for a player who relies so much on burst and agility, are always tricky. You never really know how long they'll linger, and the last thing anyone wants is to rush him back too soon. That's the painful part. Huff was supposed to be one of the guys leading this defensive resurgence while Bosa and Warner healed up. Instead, the Niners are now down another key piece heading into a critical stretch of the season. The timing couldn't be worse. Up next are the Houston Texans, and while on paper it might look like a winnable game, especially after Houston's ugly loss to the Seahawks, this is still the NFL. You can't take any team lightly. And for a defense that's been carrying so much of the load this year, losing another difference maker like Huff could really change the dynamic. The one silver lining is that we did see flashes from the rest of the defensive line against Atlanta. Sam Okwonu, for example, was impressive. He racked up 5 pressures and a sack of his own, showing that he can rise to the moment when called upon. The rookie Alfred Collins had 3 pressures. Jordan Elliott and Kevin Givens both chipped in with 2, and even guys like Chase Lucas and Mike Williams contributed. That's the kind of collective effort you love to see. But now it's going to have to become the norm, not the exception. Everyone on that line is going to need to step up their game, because without Huff's consistent pressure, offenses are going to start keying in on the weak spots. And speaking of adjustments, there was another interesting storyline that came out of that game, the offensive line shuffle. With Jake Brindle going down, Matt Hennessy stepped in at center, and honestly, he looked pretty solid. Brindle's been serviceable, but he's always had his limitations, especially when it comes to holding his ground against powerful interior rushers. Hennessy brought something different. There was more mobility, more fluidity, and a little extra spark in how the line moved. He's not just some random backup either. This is a guy who was a third-round pick coming out of Temple and showed flashes of promise with the Falcons before injuries slowed him down. Against Atlanta, he was steady. 0 sacks allowed, just 1 pressure on 20 pass-blocking snaps, and a pass-block efficiency of 97.5. That's the kind of performance that makes coaches take notice. And maybe, just maybe, this could be one of those hidden blessings that come from injuries. Sometimes when players go down, others get the chance to prove they belong, and that's how depth is built. For Hennessy, it's an opportunity to show he can be more than just a stopgap. The Niners' offensive line has been under heavy scrutiny all year, and rightfully so. The run game hasn't been anywhere near what we're used to seeing from a Kyle Shanahan team. But against Atlanta, things looked different. There was more push, more balance, and more control at the line of scrimmage. Now, of course, there's still plenty to clean up. Dominic Pooney, for example, has had a rough stretch. His performance against Tampa Bay was one of his worst. 6 pressures, 6 hurries, and he looked completely overmatched at times. But give credit where it's due, he bounced back against the Falcons. He looked more composed, more confident, and it's clear the coaching staff is managing his knee injury carefully. If that's what it takes for him to stay ready and perform on Sundays, then so be it. Because when he's healthy and playing his best, he's a critical part of this offensive line's identity. The key now for San Francisco is finding stability, both in personnel and in rhythm. They've been shuffling pieces all season, trying to find combinations that work, and while it's been frustrating, there were encouraging signs against Atlanta. You could feel a bit of that old-school Niners physicality creeping back into the trenches. And that's huge because the next stretch of games is going to test every ounce of this team's toughness. With Houston up next, the spotlight is back on the trenches. That Texans offensive line has struggled all year, which could have been the perfect stage for Huff to feast again. But now it's up to the next man up. This defense has been built on the next man up mentality for years, and once again, that phrase is going to be tested in a big way. The question is, can the 49ers keep their edge without their stars? Can the backups step into the fire and keep this machine running? We're about to find out. Now let's dive into what might quietly be the biggest storyline from that win against the Falcons, the running game. For the first time all season, it felt like the 49ers finally found something that clicked on the ground. And it wasn't just about the numbers. It was about the attitude, the physicality, and the way they attacked the defense. You could see it from the very first series. The offensive line was firing off the ball. The backs were hitting holes with conviction, and the Falcons' front 7 had a hard time adjusting to the new approach. For weeks, fans have been asking the same question. What happened to the Niners' trademark rushing attack? This is a Kyle Shanahan offense. We're used to seeing creative zone schemes, wide runs, perfect timing, and blockers moving in unison. But through the first 5 weeks, it just wasn't there. The numbers were shocking. The Niners ranked dead last in yards per carry and near the bottom in rushing yards per game. For an offense built around balance and rhythm, that's completely uncharacteristic. It forced the team to become one-dimensional, leaning heavily on Mac Jones' arm to keep them alive in games. That's not the formula Shanahan wants. So what changed? The answer lies in a subtle but important shift in the play calling. Shanahan started dialing back on his classic outside zone runs and instead leaned more on power and gap concepts. In the first chunk of the season, San Francisco ran zone on over 60% of their plays. But over the last 2 weeks, that number dropped to about 40%. And against Atlanta, the difference was impossible to miss. Instead of trying to stretch the defense horizontally and wait for a cutback lane, the Niners went right at them, north and south, quick-hitting, smash-mouth football. That change unlocked something. Christian McCaffrey, who's been quietly grinding through one of the toughest stretches of his career, looked rejuvenated. He was decisive, hitting the hole fast, lowering his shoulder, and dragging defenders. On power plays, the Niners averaged more than 7 yards per carry. That's not just efficient, that's dominant. You could tell Shanahan and offensive line coach Chris Forster made a conscious decision to embrace the team's physicality instead of trying to dance around opponents. And it worked. The interesting thing is how this adjustment also helps the offensive line. Earlier in the season, it felt like the interior was getting bullied. Guys were getting pushed backward, losing leverage, and McCaffrey was getting hit behind the line before he could even make a move. The stat that summed it all up was his yards before contact, way down from last year. But when you switch to power concepts, you're asking linemen to do what most of them love to do. Fire off, hit someone, move them out of the way. It simplifies things. Instead of worrying about perfect footwork and timing in a zone scheme, it becomes a question of who can win their block. And the 49ers, for the first time this year, looked like the bullies again. That's what makes this so exciting. If the Niners can continue to blend that power approach with the finesse of their zone game, the offense suddenly becomes unpredictable again. Defenses won't be able to just sit back and expect pass-heavy play calling or quick throws. They'll have to respect the ground game, which in turn opens up play action, bootlegs, and those deadly crossing routes Shanahan loves to design. When this offense is balanced, it's one of the hardest units in football to stop. And you could see how that balance changed the flow of the game against Atlanta. Once the Niners established the run, Mac Jones didn't have to do everything on his own. The play action started working. The linebackers bit on fakes. The timing returned. It looked like the version of this offense that fans have been waiting to see since the start of the season. The offensive rhythm was back, and it all started with the running game finding its teeth again. Now, of course, this doesn't mean all problems are solved. Consistency is the next step. It's one thing to do it once. It's another to make it a part of your identity again. Houston's defensive front, while not elite, has size and power, and they're going to challenge that physicality. The Niners have to prove that last week wasn't a one-time thing, that it's the start of a new phase for the offense. And it's not just about McCaffrey. It's about everyone up front buying in, Hennessy, Pooney, Banks, Trent Williams, everyone. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to 49ers Zone and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the San Francisco 49ers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. In a move that has sent shockwaves through the NFL and left 49ers fans in absolute disbelief, the San Francisco 49ers have reportedly traded star wide receiver Deebo Samuel. The news, which began as a whisper in the league circles, exploded into a full-blown media frenzy within hours. Sources close to the organization claim the decision, while strategic in nature, has sparked outrage and confusion among the faithful. Deebo Samuel, known for his explosive plays, versatility, and leadership on and off the field, has been a cornerstone of the 49ers offense. His ability to turn seemingly routine plays into highlight reel moments made him a fan favorite and a nightmare for opposing defenses. The prospect of seeing him in another uniform has left the 49ers faithful in a state of panic, with social media feeds flooded with incredulous reactions and heated debates. While the specifics of the trade remain murky, insiders suggest the move is part of a larger strategy by the front office to reshape the team's roster and salary structure. The 49ers have long been praised for their careful roster management, but trading away a player of Samuel's caliber, even if in exchange for draft picks or younger talent, is seen by many as a gamble that could have immediate repercussions on the field. Fans are reacting viscerally, with some calling it the end of an era and others demanding answers from the team's management. Local sports bars and fan forums have been buzzing nonstop as supporters struggle to reconcile the idea of a 49ers offense without its dynamic weapon. Rumors are already swirling about Samuel's potential landing spots, with analysts speculating that teams desperate for a game-changer will make aggressive moves to acquire him. Whether this trade will ultimately pay off for San Francisco remains to be seen, but one thing is certain. The ripple effect of Deebo Samuel's departure will dominate conversations across the league for weeks, if not months. For now, 49ers fans can only watch in disbelief as the team they have cheered for navigates what might be the most shocking roster shakeup in recent memory. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the San Francisco 49ers, make sure to subscribe to 49ers Zone and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.